There we are. Hello and welcome to Barely There, only podcast you need to listen to regarding your Chicago Bears. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Barely There Pod. Be sure to follow me, Duke Coughlin, at that Pod Guy Duke on Twitter. And we have Lucas Perfetti at Lucas Perfetti 46. Lucas, how's it going, buddy?
What's cracking, man? It's going pretty good. I actually, I just think it's kind of crazy what's going on in the NFL in general, right? Like overall landscape of the way things are happening. We're seeing like franchise quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan get moved all the time. We're seeing special quarterbacks being paid obscene amounts and then them losing their number one receiver. We saw that with both the Packers and the Chiefs with Tyreek Hill. So just overall kind of a crazy landscape. And we're seeing the NFL kind of move towards more towards that NBA offseason where it's not a 5-year rebuild or no, you can get things done in 2 off seasons. Everyone wants that 2-year plan now because of what the Bengals did in the last 2.
Yeah, it's been pure unadulterated madness for the most part. Obviously we're kind of coming off the heels of the Tyreek Hill trade today to the Dolphins. And then obviously I don't think we covered this in the last episode. I'm pretty sure it happened after was the Devontae Adams trade from Green Bay. There's just madness going on everywhere. You have Tom Brady retiring, unretiring, it's kind of been the first hint of the Brett Favre syndrome we've seen out of him. Big free agent signings, obviously. We've kind of gotten probably the big first wave out of the way of guys. We're kind of seeing a lot more of the reunions of players going from their new teams to their past teams, just like with Malcolm Butler signing with the Patriots today. Yeah, dude, we've gotten a little bit of everything in this free agency cycle, including the Bears making the headlines kind of for all the wrong reasons to start out with. The biggest free agent signing we had, Larry Ogunjobi, failing his physical and voiding the contract. So Larry Ogunjobi will no longer be a Chicago Bear. Obviously we've had some time to kind of let that simmer. What was your first reaction to that, Lucas?
I think it's kind of a mixed bag, right? Because like part of you is thinking, hey, that was the Bears' one big splash. And then you see someone like DJ Reader, I believe, posting like pretty much saying like this is a messed up business because this guy got his big payday after he worked and kind of got the results he should have gotten in a prove it year, and now that all got taken away from him. So there's many emotions that go into it. I could see how people would say like, oh, this is irresponsible because your biggest signing didn't pass his physical and he broke his leg 2 months ago or his Achilles, whatever that may be. But you could also think, on the other end of that, glass half full, right? He didn't go or Ryan Poles did not go through with his major signing being injured, him not passing his physical. Parnell McPhee, as many know, was Ryan Pace's biggest signing in his first year, had knee problems, and really kind of lingered throughout his career in Chicago. So we've kind of avoided that with Larry O. But it sucks because it's like that was the 3 technique, and I know they went ahead and had a backup plan pretty quick and signed Ali Quinn Muhammad and I think Justin Jones is his name. Another DT from the Chargers.
Yeah, it's Justin Jones.
Justin Jones, yeah. So it's not a high profile player, and everything you hear about him, he's more of that run stopping 3 technique and less of the get up field and a pass rush 3 technique. But nonetheless, they did have a backup plan, so I feel like that does show, they're kind of on top of it. But it kind of stems back to what I said in our first episode. They get a 2-year window. You get a 2-year plan. I kind of alluded to that in my last statement. That's what it comes down to. It's easy to fucking sell off assets. It's easy to get a 2nd and a 6th round pick for fucking Khalil Mack and dump off his contract. Like, that is an easy thing to do. Are you going to be able to rebuild this roster? And right now, I'm not like super satisfied with the pieces that they're putting together. And I'm not going to go 0 to a fucking 100 and really freak out about it because it's like we're literally 7 days into 1 week into free agency right now. You still have the draft. You still have the players that get cut after the draft. So you're talking about, rooms maybe like Dallas and they draft a wide receiver in the 1st round. And it's like now you have a stacked room and one of their Albert Wilsons or someone like that gets cut. Like then you get that backdraft of signing as well. So there's a lot to go through still. But right now I wanted to at least see competitive football And I don't believe the roster suggests that currently.
Yeah, so there's kind of a couple things you kind of touched on there. I guess I'll just kind of go down the list. So kind of the big thing with Justin Jones, because I tried to watch quite a bit of film on both him and Al Quadi Muhammad. I've really watched film on a lot of these signings that we've had, but we'll talk about a couple of them later. Justin Jones isn't a guy that's going to run anybody over. He's not going to be like this bull rush type pass rush or anything like that. He's very much like a finesse, shoot the gap type of guy, and there's going to be a place for that on in a 4-3 defense at defensive tackle. Is he going to be a day one starter? I don't believe so. I think there's going to be a lot. I think that position group is going to be addressed continually, especially probably end up in the draft at some point. But he's a guy who, he was a former 3rd round pick. There's a lot of upside there. Never really showed with the Chargers, but kind of gets a new breath of life with Chicago. Big boomer bust, but otherwise he could be a solid player. The thing with El Quadin Muhammad that I really like, the thing that stuck out to me most, without even looking at his statistics or anything like that, he's so good at setting the edge and then going to the inside. His inside move, Lucas, is insane. He is so good at trying to at faking out outside and just immediately cutting in inside, shedding a block and getting to the quarterback, or at least getting pressure to the quarterback. He's also been very good in run defense as well. But his inside move is something that can be really effective. He could be a sneaky guy that could get you 7-8 sacks next year, if he gets enough reps. I could see very much rotation. I think Robert Quinn's status with the team moving forward is still kind of up in the air. I don't know exactly what we're going to do with that, or if he's going to return. I feel like both are totally on the table at this point. But I could see Muhammad either being a starter day one or being a big part of a rotation with a guy like Travis Gibson. I guess kind of like to the other points, obviously anyone who's on Twitter, anyone who kind of keeps up with the heartbeat. I mean, I've seen astronomically bad takes on Facebook as well. So really any social media of your choice. There have been a lot of hot takes.
Facebook is like the new underworld of the internet. It's replaced Reddit, in my opinion. Like the quality of fucking comments on Bears groups and Facebook are just horrific.
Yeah, no, it's gotten really bad. And it sucks because there are people who I respect on Facebook who have stayed on there, and I've just seen their some of the takes they have just complete downfall, you know what I mean? But I'm with you, Lucas. I'm not gonna overreact to what Ryan Poles is doing right now. I think people lose sight of the fact that we are going to have 85 players when it comes to hit August. And we're a long way from that. We're like 30 players away from that. There's a lot that can happen from right now to even week 1 of the preseason, to even the first day of training camp, So I know you were kind of surprised when I brought it up because you're a sleepy ass, but Dakota Dozier getting signed from the Vikings. Yeah, Twitter's freaking out about that right now because they're convinced that this offensive lineman from the Vikings, who was on the practice squad most last year, is going to be a day one starter when that is just simply not the case.
Yeah, that's the best part about Bears Twitter. It's like you gotta love that aspect of them, that like every single person is the next champion.
Yeah, no, and
the dudes that they have never heard of, that like one random person did a 4-clip. Dude, that's what happened with that kid from the Bills. He started like 4 games last year, and the way people were talking about him, I'm like, how the fuck don't I know this guy? Like, is this guy a stud or something? And I'm trying to think back, like, well, the Bills' interior was pretty bad. And then you go back and look, and it's like there's one clip floating out there that's his 4 fucking highlights of his entire career. And you're just like, oh, wow, he's a masher. And then you go and actually look at one of his full games, and you're like, no, this is a Sam Mustipher of the Buffalo Bills, but everyone is championing this dude. Gotta love that aspect of Bears Twitter, because it's like everyone's fucking amazing until it's time to actually get on the field, and then everyone's just trash and everyone's got to go.
Well, dude, and it kind of seems like once somebody doesn't get the player they want, that they're just ready to throw everything out the fucking window. Like, oh, I hate it, hate everything about it. Like, I could have easily did that with the Khalil Mack trade because I hated it. You know what I mean? Like, right, my immediate reaction, Lucas, you saw how fucking pissed off I was about
you
that
were
move.
upset.
Yeah. I was irate, dude. Like, I had just gotten a haircut. I was feeling good about myself. Like, probably would have stared at myself in the mirror for an hour. And I did stare at myself in the mirror for an hour because my haircut was actually really nice. But I was fucking irate staring at myself. and I had to convince myself that trading Khalil Mack actually made a little bit of sense. But it's even Ryan Bates. I think the biggest reason why he's gotten any of the attention that he has was he played 100% of the snaps in the playoffs, and that's kind of a big thing. Usually, you kind of get that offensive lineman playing in the playoffs type hype. I believe a former Chicago Bears offensive lineman, I'm kind of blanking on his name right now. He signed with Tampa Bay a couple years ago and played in the playoffs for them, and he immediately got a ton of hype and just kind of fizzled out. But I don't hate the idea of Ryan Bates. It has to be at the right deal. I'm all for just getting experienced offensive linemen in the building. And I think that's what Ryan Poles is kind of looking at too. Dakota Dozier, for as terrible as everyone says he is, he started 16 games 2 years ago. He started a lot of football games. Lucas Patrick has started a lot of football games.
I think the counter of that is Rashad Coward started 12 games in fucking 2 years ago. Like, there's stupid ass fucking coaches that make stupid ass decisions and have guys that have no business being on the field, letting them start because they went to Delaware with Mike Furry or some shit. Like that is a reality that happens in the NFL. It's a big fucking fraternity, and you don't have the room to pay A+ players for every position, and a lot of times you're going to have to substitute D+ players, and you're going to pick the D+ players that you like more than the D+ players that a different coach likes. You know what I mean? Or maybe even give them a job over a C- player just because they're willing to listen to your bullshit and go along with it. So, like, while I do agree with what you're saying, I think the biggest reason for optimism in general, because I'm not a big fan of a lot of the moves that Ryan Poles has made already. And I'm not going to sit here and be an apologist for him, but I'm also not going to sit here and bury him a week in because, like I said, there's 70% of the market left. You have an entire draft still. We have no idea what he's doing. You know what I mean? When he gets into the draft, we have no idea if he combos 39 and Robert Quinn to move up to fucking 19 to grab Chris Olave. Like, that would be pretty dope. Like, yeah, it would suck to take that cap hit on Robert Quinn, but when you look at the future of the team, that's like a future in mind move, opposed to the signing of a Robert Quinn or a Jimmy Graham. That's when you're backpedaling and you need results now. Long story short, I just think it's I think one reason to be optimistic moving forward and in general, and when you're talking about guys like Larry Borum, Tevin Jenkins, Cody Whitehair, some of the guys that are currently on this roster, even a Lucas Patrick, like looking at those guys, the scheme that Luke Getsy and frankly half the league runs is so much more quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and offensive line friendly. It's not even fair. Like, you're talking about combo blocks and zone blocking scheme that's going to be a lot more, hey, touch your man with your left hand and move down the line and like move in one as a line in unison versus a lot more of that singled out, like, hey, we're going to have fucking Tevin Jenkins against their best pass rusher one-on-one and we're going to leave him on an island type thing. Like, that's no longer going to be happening. The scheme itself is going to make things a lot easier for everyone. And guys like Equanimous St. Brown that are a $900,000 signing that might not have made a difference last year could make a bigger difference this year. That's all I'm saying. Or a Lucas Patrick could look a lot better.
So basically what you're saying is Matt Nagy isn't going to do dumb shit for the Chicago Bears anymore. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I even harken back to like when I played high school football, like the idea of leaving your weakest offensive lineman on an island is just the worst fucking idea in the world. You bring in a tight end, you have a guy chip, you do anything, there's any amount of situations you can do to avoid putting a rookie Tevin Jenkins, who had barely seen the field 90% of the season, on fucking Daniel Hunter. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many better ideas out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're simple, and that's kind of what I hope we bring to our offense, is a little bit of simplicity, not necessarily for the defense we're lining up against, but for our players. Like, that's one thing that drove me so crazy about Matt Nagy. And I don't want to talk about him a lot because that fucker is so out of Chicago, and I'm so happy about it. But that's one thing he really did that drove me nuts, was he complicated his offense for his own players. He made people second guess. And any coach at any level will tell you, when a player is thinking, they're not going to play fast. If you think too much, you're going to play slow. You're going to think twice. You're going to question what you're doing. You're not going to go full speed because of it. Whereas you see, top offenses in the NFL, even as weird as it is, Andy Reid's offense itself, you see so many players going fast and running in and out of their routes, and offensive linemen knowing exactly what they're doing, and Patrick Mahomes trusting his reads, because it's so fucking easy. It really is that easy. Andy Reid has always made it easy for players. That's why he's succeeded with so many damn quarterbacks. But anyway, not to jump off too much on that.
Well, and the biggest thing to me is like the whole like depth of route versus option route. Like you got to understand your personnel. Like why was Anthony Miller ever doing that kind of shit? Like he never showed that at Memphis. He just showed like, hey, I can get behind people and I can make acrobatic catches. Like he showed he was a dog after the catch. Like Anthony Miller to me was the type of guy you tell him to run a post and that's it. You know what I mean? Like he runs his post, he gets open and you throw him the ball or he doesn't get open. Whereas like I always felt like there was, Matt Nagy always saying some form of, oh, he ran his route two routes too deep or 2 yards too deep or 2 yards too shallow, or, he was supposed to make it an out, but he turned it into an in. Like, and I think that's because of the complexity of the offense. And it's so funny because it's like he's trying to be this mad scientist, but he's got his head so far up his ass. Like it never worked, and we know that. But that's the thing I'm like trying to help Bears fans really see past is like an average player can be propped up by scheme, and those average players that we had, or even above average players made to look average, were not propped up by anything. So we need to kind of see what that natural jump is going to be as well.
Yeah, and kind of to that point, I want to see what scheme makes like a good scheme makes a guy like Justin Fields look like, because I feel like the reason why people have gotten so upset, and Lucas, me and you have seen it firsthand, is people are upset because it doesn't feel like, in their opinion, that the Bears are trying to set up Justin Fields for success. And I kind of touched on this in the last episode, like when you're kind of unsure, which you have to understand, Ryan Poles didn't draft Justin Fields. And I'm talking, I want to suffice this by saying I love Justin Fields. I think he is that guy. Like beyond belief. I truly believe that. Lucas, I've been high on him since the draft. You know that. Ryan Poles doesn't feel the same way I do. I can't confirm that, but like there's no way for him to know that because he didn't draft him. He could love Justin Fields, but he's not going to be as bought in as like everyone who's seen him play last year.
Well, and for a fact he's not going to go down with him, right? Okay. Like it's not his draft pick, so he is not he has that leeway of saying I didn't pick this fucking kid. I don't think he's the guy.
But with the biggest part of that, Lucas, is he's not going to rush before seeing one game of Justin Fields in his roster on his team with his handpicked head coach. He is not going to sell the farm to build around a quarterback that he's not sure of. It's that simple. Like, especially when we have so much money over the next 2 years built up in capital. This is going to be a prove it year for Justin Fields. People are going to want to fucking hear that. That doesn't necessarily mean like his roster spot is in jeopardy and we're going to move on from next year if he plays at a, middling level. But like, we're not going, it seems like to me, like, and this is all speculation. It seems like to me, Ryan Poles isn't going to buy in completely on offense and just sell the house to get a guy like Tyreek Hill or, sign a top tier wide receiver or sign a top tier tight end to pair with Cole Kmet until we know Justin Fields is the guy, until Justin Fields can go out there and show he's the guy, because we saw a glimpse of it in year one, but we haven't seen a full season of it. If Justin Fields has a good sophomore season, we have all the money and all the draft capital in the world next season to build around him.
You go out with a fully loaded gun instead of a half-eaten turkey sandwich in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Like you're going out with a fully loaded gun if you actually like that quarterback, or you have the draft capital where you could possibly pick a quarterback. And what seems to be, for the look aheads out there, I know that's impossible to really tell, but it seems to be a much stronger quarterback draft. I know I heard that if Sam Howell would have been eligible to come out 2 years ago, he would have been hands down the number 1 overall pick. And now he's literally got like fucking fart juice rolling down his nuts. So that's where we're at in general. Malik Willis is clearly the number 1 quarterback prospect, but no, I agree with you in general. And I think it's good to willing to be critical. Because me personally, I think the Bears should have been in on Robert Woods. Like, there's no reason. Now, it's one thing if, like, Robert Woods said, hey, I have a no-trade clause. I want you to lift it only for this place or only for this place. Because Tennessee's definitely more of a contender than the Chicago Bears. Or like Amari Cooper, going to the Browns. Because now you're looking at things where it's not really draft capital. You're looking at our 5th or a 6th round pick, which the Bears have, and they have extra ones next year. Or you're looking at and you're looking at taking on that contract. So you're not looking at huge draft capital. So if your strategy really is to build through the draft and you have an obscene amount of cap for next year and the year after like that, I really would like to see you make a move like that.
Well,
Now
dude,
it's harder to do that for sure because the Bears are not that desirable. They're in the middle of they had a hardcore tailspin. They didn't catch the fucking rope as it was unraveling or whatever, or the yarn as it was unraveling. So it's completely down to fucking grade 0 right now. So if you're a player, you're going to have to get probably grossly overpaid, probably not lifting a trade clause for this team. But those are the type of moves I would like to see, or at least the type of pursuit that the Chicago Bears would be in. Be in contact with Robert Woods' agent and say, hey, listen, we'll give you $18 million a year, even though that's a slight overpay. Still way more fucking value on a hurt Robert Woods for $18 million a year than Christian Kirk or someone like that. So, I'm not sitting here trying to be like, oh, the Bears are great and they're in great shape and I love what Ryan Poles is doing, because that would be a complete fucking lie. But it's like, I would like to see a little bit more action, a little bit more proactive. You can get C- players. It's not difficult. You can get guys that can play a position for 2 years for $2 million. But at some point, you need to fucking raise your level, because you're talking about the Eagles and the Colts and Ian Cunningham having some history there. Like the Eagles and the Colts know the difference between when it's time to go all in and when it's not. Should I trade a 3rd round pick for fucking Matt Ryan, or should I trade 2 1st round picks for Deshaun Watson? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's 2 different philosophies. So that's one thing. I'm not going to like this ball farting in year 2 or 3.
Yeah, so I guess kind of the biggest thing I would take away from how this offseason has unrolled throughout the entire NFL, and again, I'm hoping this is something that Ryan Poles sees, is every year guys are available. One way or another, something's going to happen. Teams that think that they're a year away or 2 years away, they're going to crumble this year. There are teams who are going to fall off hard. Teams with talent that are going to fall off hard, similar to kind of how we did. There are going to be pieces out there that'll be sold off, and we are a team that can take advantage of that next year because we will have draft capital and we have money. I hate being that guy to push the tire down the road and say, well, next year, like especially before the year has even started, like that really does suck. But there will be players available next year. There will be money available to be spent next year where we won't have to think too far down the line about it. Like there is a lot of potential to do something next year. Like Poles could be building a roster. Obviously, he's going to want younger guys. He's going to want his guys on the team. He's going to want to see what's left of this roster to kind of gut it, to see what we want, like see what players show out. Like we've kind of touched on that every episode. But there should be a plan down the road. Like we're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. I hate to say that. Like it really sucks to say that. Like, but I think our best bet, and we've said it, Lucas, is competing for a wild card spot. So with that, understand that buying in right now, year 1, just isn't the move, man. Like there are so many things that can happen. Like, did anybody see Tyreek Hill getting traded? Like that happened so fucking quick, and that can happen next offseason, dude. Players will be available. It's as simple as that, dude. What if Mike Evans decides after next season he's like, all right, I'm out in Tampa?
Like I that would be a very drastic version, because you're talking about like a career guy that is regularly taking less money to keep like more receivers there. But I mean, anything's possible, right? The Tyreek Hill seemed like it was impossible. It really did not seem like it was even a possibility. So,
well, dude, and we all
next year. That's the thing about thanks, Wolf.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's the thing about free agency too. Like the pool dries up so quickly. Like if you looked at this year going into it, starting in 2020, 2021, you would have looked ahead and been like, damn, bro, Adams probably isn't getting there, but there's a possibility Godwin goes. There's a possibility, like Kirk was like one of the lower guys. DJ Chark was one of the lower guys, and they became the market resetters because of franchise tags and people re-signing with their own team. So that well always fucking dries up. So realistically, accruing as much draft capital as possible is the best way to go. And even just looking at some of these contracts, Tyreek Hill somehow got more than Devontae Adams, which is like insane to me, because DeAndre Hopkins is resetting the market using two teams' contracts and kind of putting them together to get the number he's getting. And then everyone's just disregarded that. To me, it's like right now, wide receivers are the best fucking assets you could possibly have. There's no reason not to draft one in the first or second round every single year, and just always be stockpiled at the position. The worst that could happen is you have a really good wide receiver room for cheap. The best that could happen is you're fucking trading off high level wide receivers for first and third round picks, every other fucking year, and just keeping that filter going. So it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it just comes off with what the Bears are doing, that they're going after guys that the rest of the league missed, guys that have high upside, but they haven't really gotten a chance to show it. And dude, I don't know how we are almost half an hour in and we haven't talked about it, dude. The Bears signed a fucking fullback, and they happened to sign a fullback who led block for Derrick Henry.
Cream team. And he's actually Kari. I can't say his last name very well.
Kari Blazingame.
Yeah, Blazingame. Is he like Australian or something? Because that sounds like an Australian-ish type last name.
I have no idea, but I'm assuming his Blazingame is fucking like A1, like 100%.
Oh yeah, he gets blasted as fuck. No, but realistically, I was watching him a little bit, and it's like every one of his highlight plays at least is him receiving the ball out of the backfield. So really just, hey, I'm going to be an outlet guy and get you a first down. So personally, it's nice to see a fullback, but for me, I would have liked to see one of those like really throwback, hardcore, thin mustache, pencil mustache on top. Just smells like perspiration, like 270, 260 type guys. The
Klein saucers of the world.
Like pounds. So, but he's only 230. So he is kind of a hybrid fullback. I would like to see someone with a little bit more beef. But definitely a step in the right direction. And that's another thing too. When you talk about protection and in the running game and passing game, like a fullback comes in so much bigger than having a Damian Williams or a Tariq Cohen playing as a halfback. That's just a good blocker, good at identifying blocking assignments versus a true fullback, like lighting motherfuckers up.
Yeah, that's exactly it though. We haven't had a true fullback. We've had like JP Holtz, a tight end, like in I formations. You know what I mean? Like it feels like. And
Kansas City, our old fullback was picked up and put to you. It's astounding how fucking bald and stupid Matt Nagy was. But keep going, buddy.
Yeah, but I really think this is going to be kind of a step in the right direction of kind of like how we're going to build our scheme. That's one thing. If we're going to look at Luke Getsy and kind of see the offense that the Packers run, dude, they have a two-headed monster in the backfield. They almost always have a pretty good fullback. They went from John Kuhn to like a couple different guys. Like there's always a fullback on the roster, and they're always pretty utilized. I think, dude, you have David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert in the backfield. Like, why not run why not run the offense the Browns should run? You know what I mean? Like, we all know Kevin Stefanski doesn't like running the football because he's a fucking moron, but like, why not try to build like that type of two-headed monster out of the backfield? Because that sets up play action. That sets up shots downfield for a guy like Byron Pringle, who we were talking about before we came on the show about how high his separation rate is. Number 2 in the NFL, mind you. And we just got him on a cheap 1-year deal. Why not try that? Obviously I think we're far away from scheme because we haven't seen the total build of the roster, but I feel like signing a fullback who, like I said, he might be a smaller guy, but he shared a backfield with Derrick Henry and was the guy to lead block for a guy that's getting paid a lot of fucking money in Tennessee. Like, they obviously trust him to go to the second level and just absolutely eat alive middle linebackers. So, it could potentially set the tone of what we want to do on offense, and I think if you use the talent you have, build your offense around the talent that you have, I think that's a good sign of it. Because even if we get Chris Olave in a perfect world in the NFL draft, man, is he going to be a 1,500-yard receiver right off the bat? Like, that's such a unicorn type thing. Like, it's so rare to get a rookie wide receiver just go off like that. So we're going to need a balanced attack, and being able to run the football with Dave Montgomery, who's proven, and Khalil Herbert, who just looks like a star in the making, like, just seems like a good idea. And that's just what I love about us signing a fullback.
Yeah, and when you have a fullback in a run first type offense, it's going to create so much less pressure for guys like yeah, I see that Hopkins is a free agent next year. Guy I really like in the free agent pool next year is Brandon Cooks, and that's someone that I think is definitely going to get moved on from in Houston. But not a bad suggestion there with Hopkins. Overall, I just feel like you're going to see a lot more value in guys like Equinemius St. Brown and Byron Pringle and whoever the Bears decide to draft. They're going to add someone. We don't know if it's going to be a fifth rounder or a second rounder, but they're adding a wide receiver via the draft. Another guy I really like that's on the market right now that I think is a perfect complement to what Mooney and Pringle and really just that skill set that the Bears kind of have acquired on their team right now, and that's AJ Green. Like, he's an older guy, dude. He's gonna be like $6-7 million.
I'm not doubting it. I called it before you said it.
He caught 850 or he had 850 receiving yards last year. Of course, the one thing everyone remembers is him not turning around and the Packers fucking like just a complete garbage. I'm sorry. This is one thing I want to acknowledge right here. Wolf saying that I say Olave has the closest chance to boom like Chase did this year. They are on different fucking stratospheres, bro. Like, and I'm not a big Olave guy in general this year. I like the idea of that connection, but Jamar Chase is like Bane in terms of penis size, and what's it called is like fucking Garfield. Like that, like this, we're talking different fucking apples and oranges. We're talking about vegetables.
You're such a fucking idiot.
I don't even know where that came from, but I'm just saying, like, we're like, it's nowhere. Chris Olave is nowhere near that level of prospect, and I like him personally, but I think there's other guys I would move towards. Either way, AJ Green to me is that guy. We all remember him for sharding on his balls in the back of the end zone in the Packers game during the comeback. Terrible for Bears fans, but I think overall he was really productive. He stayed healthy for the entire last year, so I do think some of those lingering ankle issues and shit like that were happening in Cincinnati, I think it was just because they were a dumpster fire and he didn't want to be there anymore. So he was just kind of milking injuries. I think that's someone you definitely kick the tires on because he's like a perfect complement to Mooney too, right? Like AJ Green in his prime was not a separator. He was a throw the ball up and I'm going to fucking catch the ball on your face. And I just feel like that type of stabilizing presence in the room would be nice. And then you could have some of these lighter, faster guys kind of breaking off big runs after the catch and stuff like that, just because AJ Green's going to be able to demand some attention standing there as an X receiver, like a true X receiver.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of the number one thing. It's going to be size. You know, that's kind of where everybody's looking. That's why I'm as big on a guy, and I'm not going to touch too much on him. Traylon Burks, you know, I fucking love that guy. But like he's got that perfect build of like what you want on an outside receiver next to Darnell Mooney. And I feel like, you know, people have brought up Byron Pringle as kind of like being a decently sized wide receiver. I really think him out of the slot's going to be like nasty if they want to really kind of capitalize on that, just because of his separation inside and having some size over the middle of the field besides just Cole Kmet. I think that benefits really well. I think kind of a bigger slot guy is a lost art, especially one that runs as fast as a guy like Pringle does. But yeah, you know, I've always loved.
And he's 6'1", 205. That's really big for a fucking slot. Like that's large for a slot receiver.
I would love every bit of it though. I legitimately would. Like, you know, we see guys like Chris Godwin line up in the slot, you know, and he's definitely way outsized for that, but it just works so well for a guy like Tom Brady who can see the middle of the field that way with a guy who is usually going a different direction in Rob Gronkowski. So that's where I want to use a guy like Cole Kmet. I'm not trying to compare him to Gronk at all. So just take that away. I didn't mean that at all. But that's a guy I wouldn't mind seeing us use more over the field, but in the middle of the field. But yeah, I really like the AJ Green suggestion. Especially if Arizona lets him walk away. You know, he was kind of that solidifying presence with DeAndre Hopkins being injured for a good chunk of the year. So yeah, I really wouldn't mind that. It would have to be at the right price. It can't be like 2016 AJ Green money. Like there's just no shot that can work. But like if you were willing to play in a team like Chicago, which would be interesting considering he just left Cincinnati, yeah, I'd be up for it. I want size on the outside. That like regardless if they're a 1-year rental or not, like that's going to be able to take pressure off of Darnell Mooney and be able to have Darnell Mooney really shine.
Well, and Wolf brought up a great point in the chat. Like, if Mooney goes down, the Bears are fucked. Like, let's be very clear here. Like, they have. Then you're rolling out Equanimous St. Brown. As of now, of course, as of now, you're rolling out Equanimous St. Brown, Byron Pringle, and fucking Daz Newsome. Don't forget about Daz Newsome. He's still on the roster. I feel like he gets a little bit slack because everyone's like Mooney's the only dude on the roster, but no, Daz is still here, baby.
Yeah, I'm a big Daz guy. You know that.
I
And
know
so
you love him. And this
Joey Herf as well.
Joe, what did you say about Joey Herf?
Joey Herf, he's a big Daz Newsome guy as well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I could see that. But we're gonna address wide receiver position in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if we even took 2 wide receivers like from a trade down. You know what I mean? Like
I'm totally okay with that.
We're going to attack the position. And if we get a guy in the second round, like a guy who falls out of the first, Traylon Burks, then I'm feeling a lot less worried about a guy like Darnell Mooney going down, because it would be a true test to see if someone can take over the reins. But you know what? Darnell Mooney's not getting injured. I'm knocking on fucking wood right now. There's zero shot that's happening. And I'm honestly really sad that he even got brought up. But
I mean, but you gotta think about shit like that, really. Like,
you
look at it, like you're already really thin at a position. Like, that's tough if your only guy that you have some faith in, it goes down. Like, you are fucked.
Well, speaking of being thin at positions, I know everyone's kind of got the offensive mindset of what we want to attack this offseason, but we are really thin at safety and corner right now. Like, really thin at safety and corner right now. And listen, I understand everyone has been a little bit spoiled with a good defense since 2017, but a bad defense can just deflate a team so damn quick. So
you talk about room for error as a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback, like a good defense, giving him the ability to make those errors without it completely, there's a big difference between a defense that lets up 7 every time after every pick, or a defense that gets you off the field for only 3, like that type of psyche gets built in for a quarterback. Like, fuck, I can't make this mistake because it's going to make sure my team has no chance. I'm not saying it's like the psyche of Justin Fields, because that's the thing. I don't know if I mentioned this last episode. Like, everyone treats this kid like he's some fucking wounded dove. Like, the kid went to Ohio State University. He had to transfer because of issues at Georgia of him not getting the playing time. Like the kid is not going to fucking break. Like, I'm more so worried about keeping him upright. I'm not worried about his confidence as a human being. Like, if he's not that dude, he's not that dude. Like, to me personally, when you get someone like Mitch, who's way more raw, and someone like Fields, who's like, he's been there, he's been to the NCAA playoffs and stuff like that. He's played at a high level at the highest stage. Like, confidence should not be something you're worried about for the kid. And if it is, then he's probably not that fucking dude. Like, I think it's that simple.
Well, yeah, dude. And you know what? I actually do kind of want to address that point, because, that is a great point. You didn't bring it up on the last podcast, but you did bring it up on Twitter the other day, which is kind of what got me really excited to record today. Dude, Justin Fields himself would tell you he's not a fucking wounded duck. You know what I mean? Like he's not some like, oh, woe is me, like my confidence is going to be shot. Like, dude, Justin Fields radiates confidence. Like, there is nothing that tells me this guy doesn't believe everything that comes into his head, like that he is just that fucking great. You know what I mean? Like, he is someone who's been there. He has always been a big man on campus everywhere he's been. Like, even when he was at Georgia, he was so polarizing after he didn't get the starting job. That's why he had to transfer, because everyone knew he was too good to be sitting on the fucking bench. And, hey, Georgia, you probably made a little bit of a mistake there, but I guess we'll forgive you for it, because the path led us here. But, dude, he went to Ohio State. He took that fucking job. Like, he took that starting quarterback job. And there was never a moment where he looked shook in any game Ohio State played. And I'm speaking as someone who fucking hates Ohio State. Like, I despise everything about that university. Really, the entire state of Ohio for the most part. Just kind of the world's largest storage unit, if we're being totally honest here.
It's literally just a big pit of nothing.
But it's Justin Fields. He does not need people on Twitter like eating him up and being like, oh, that's our quarterback. Like, we're emotionally behind you, Justin. We're so bought into you. We're dipping our balls in our shoes in the name of you, Justin. Like, no, bro, he's good. Justin Fields is fucking good. His confidence will not be broken. It's just going to be everything else, man.
Yeah, and if you really look at what he worked with, like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are not big kids. Like they're more of those route specialists, a little bit more speed to them and able to stretch the field like both of those kids. So if you look at what he played with in college, like I think Mooney and Pringle is a good kind of complement to his skill set and being able to um, kind of just run that scramble drill and understand, when your quarterback's in trouble, hey, let's break away and find the quarterback's eyes. That's something that Byron Pringle brought up in his introductory press conference. So, like, while I do think, you want to get him good players because at the end of the day, his level is only going to be at a certain place. If the Bengals only had T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, Joe Burrow would not have made that step that he made with Jamar Chase having a Rookie of the Year like season, right? Like it wouldn't be comparable. But realistically, I think for what Justin Fields does well and what these receivers do well, I do think they're a pretty good complement. And I think the scheme is going to help keep him upright a lot more, especially an emphasis on the run, having a fullback staying in there and on pass pro for you. Like a lot of that stuff's going to help. But like I said, it's very easy to create a average base Madden fucking team where everyone's 72 to 78 and you're able to go out there and not be in a fucking embarrassment. Like that is not difficult. That should never be the bar, and that shouldn't be the bar for this year. So I understand why fans want to see more, but I don't think necessarily signing checks that have really high price tags is the way to go either. I think it's just kind of one of those years where we're fucked as fans because it's like you want to see more. You want to see the Bears properly build things and properly reestablish themselves. The last thing I want to see is another fucking first round pick get traded. Like I am so sick and tired of entering an offseason where I can't even look at the top 20 on the board because there's no fucking shot the Bears are going to get him. Like, I'm sick of it. I am sick of not having a first round pick. Good teams, I don't care. The Rams are an outlier right now because the Rams are the only one that's trading the fuck out of their first round picks and winning Super Bowls. Everyone else is building through the draft. So if for some reason we get someone from the Rams front office, after we've already built a core, and then we start pushing all in and trading first round picks, sure. But I am so sick of white knuckling, trying to just have a somewhat decent season and forfeiting next year. Like I'm so fucking done with it. So I get like why people are so excited to be like, hey, we need to do this right now. We need to do this right now. Like I totally understand. But at the same time, it's like, let's not fuck up next year for a team that has no chance to be competitive this year. I just want to have that feeling back of Lovie Smith where there is a true any given Sunday type feeling. You're going up against a team there's more talent on the team. They probably have better coaches. They have a better quarterback, all of that shit. But for some reason, if we just play at the top of our game today, we could take them out. Like, and you never had that feeling with Matt Nagy. You did with Lovie Smith, and you do with certain coaches around the league. And that's, I hate to say it, but that's good enough for me this year. I want them to be competitive. Like I say that from my Bears fan side, but from my, like, I know what the Bears need to do to build a proper team side. Like I understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah, well, and we don't need a season where we're like the surprise of the league and we go fucking 15-2. You know what I mean? Like we don't need that. That's not the type of season we're gonna have. We just need to be realistic. It's just not gonna happen overnight. Like to do things right, there kind of needs to be a little bit of growing pains. We need momentum going into next year. Like we don't even need to make a fucking wild card spot. Like, dude, if we could at least split with the Packers, sweep the Lions, and preferably sweep the Vikings, that alone right there puts a lot of confidence in this team moving forward. That kind of builds everyone's fucking spirits. If Justin Fields has a good year in a 7-10 season, like that builds spirits moving forward. If Byron Pringle goes off like some fucking crazy ass, like at least like 800, 900 yard season, that builds momentum into like, so we're going to have some depth, we're obviously going to have to pay to bring him back a little bit, but like, hey, and if we see any rookies take a step forward, like if that's a big plus as well. If Lucas Patrick is a guy at center, dude, having a good center for a long period of time is a big fucking plus. If Tevin Jenkins takes a step forward this upcoming year, whether it's at left or right tackle or wherever the hell we put him, that's a big step of momentum going into next year. That's one less spot we have to worry about. If Cole Kmet goes off this year and has a great year, even with our record being shit. That's a big step in the right direction. And if Darnell Mooney goes off for like 1,300 yards and like 8 to 10 touchdowns, that's a big step in the right direction about how we feel at wide receiver. Like there are so many things to look forward
You got
to
a guy like
outside of
Thomas Graham that like I think could be a good slot corner. I don't think
yeah.
he's really built for the outside, but like that's like someone you're talking about a position that is pretty much a priority now. That slot corner, like if you could have him come in and play that position, you're talking about saving, $12 million a year.
Well, dude, how are we feeling if Travis Gibson goes out and gets double digit
I know
sacks?
for a fact your fucking nuts are swollen there
Oh,
for sure.
dude, I'm getting a Tevin Jenkins jersey at some point before the season starts. Like it's already been fucking decided. But like there are so many positives to look into next year. It's like I'm not even going to be that worried about a record, to be totally honest with you. I just want to see what happens with the players we have, the young guys we feel highly of, like a guy like Cole Kmet, a guy like Khalil Herbert, a guy like Darnell Mooney taking the next step, a guy like Jalen Johnson becoming a lockdown corner, maybe Eddie Jackson getting a resurgent year so we get a little bit more confidence there. Roquan having a Roquan type season, maybe even elevating it a little bit in 4-3. Like there are so many things to look forward to outside of just staring at the record and staring at the box score. Justin Fields, dude, having a good year. You know what I mean?
If he
Like
has
there are so many positives.
if he has 3,700 yards passing and like 28 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, not that
That's
many fumbles, like
that's
you're like,
beautiful.
okay, now we are going to dump money into this offseason.
100%, dude. And we have enough money to be able to spend money next season on a year like Justin Fields having that. And then we would be able to look down the line enough to where we could set up an extension with Justin Fields if he truly is that guy. Like we're not the GM. We're not Ryan Poles. We're not going to speculate to what is exactly going on in his head. But like that seems like kind of like a long-term plan, like a 2 to 3 year turnaround. You know what I mean? While being fairly competitive while we do it. Like, why don't we let Ryan Poles see what he is as an Italian evaluator before we completely decide every player gets dog shit? He didn't draft our guy, so he's immediately dog shit. Like we didn't want Eberflus, so he's immediately dog shit. Like let's let this play out. Like we just missed a window. Let's not shrink our window by making overly aggressive moves the second we get a new GM and head coach.
Yeah, and this is something I think we should acknowledge, and then we could probably wrap up on this, Duke. But Wolf over here asks, who do you think falls realistically at wide receiver now with all of this wide receiver movement? I mean, dude, I think it's such a crap shoot, and I do think like having the Chiefs needing a wide receiver and the Packers needing a wide receiver like definitely changes things. I think you're going to see a lot more of a run in the back half of those, or the back 16 of the first round. But if you look at it, man, like historically, the Chiefs have not really drafted any wide receivers in the first round, and neither of the Packers. So like, does it change a ton? I don't know if it changes a GM's philosophy or an entire organization's philosophy. There are times for sure. I think I looked back and there was 4 times total in the history of the Green Bay Packers organization that they drafted a wide receiver in the first round. You're talking about an organization that's been around since the 30s, or even the 20s. I believe they started a year or two after the Bears, right? So like, I just, to me, it's like, yeah, having 2 first-round picks and them having a glaring need at wide receiver is like, it seems like they should make that pick, but there's so many times we see that it just doesn't happen. There's supposed to be that run on quarterbacks and it just doesn't come. So the draft's just a crapshoot, man, in general. And I think you're still looking at those same guys. I still think you're looking at Burks. I still think you're looking at like, David Bell with your second pick and some of those guys. I think Wilson and even Mechie, the other kid from Alabama. I'm blanking on his name right now. Wilson, Olave. Like, I think those are all gone. I think there's about 5 or 6 prospects that are going to be gone in the first round. But other than that, I think it's kind of a crapshoot still.
Yeah. And I think there's also potential that either the Chiefs or the Packers could use picks to trade up, which could also kind of limit what they do in the first round to possibly get a guy like Olave or, any of those top guys. I guess 3 names that would kind of pop in
I
my
hear the
head.
Packers are trading up and considering grabbing Kenny Pickett.
Wait, who?
What's his name? Kenny Pickett, the quarterback from.
Who's thinking about trading up?
The Green Bay Packers. That's what
Oh,
I
dude, yeah. I mean,
just
they.
fucking packaging up both their first and next year's first, and
I
Aaron
mean,
Rodgers to trade up and grab Kenny Pickett.
you have to have a quarterback to develop after Jordan Love. You know what I mean?
100%. You're
Like
gonna
once
need
once the
someone in there
Jordan Love era is over, you're gonna need another first round quarterback to just
for
hang out
sure.
on that bench. But I
They
guess
really just did a headstand and took a shit with that move for sure. Really sat in it with that one.
I guess if there's three names that pop in my head, let's say Traylon Burks doesn't fall, and I have to pick between three guys that I think will probably be there. Um, while this will probably set people off a little bit because of his size, I think Jahan Dotson's going to end up falling from Penn State. He's not a big guy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And he didn't rate well at the combine, which is why I think he would fall. But dude, he is a guy who was very impressive at Penn State. You know, Penn State doesn't necessarily have the greatest passing attack in the world, but you know, he runs crisp routes. He doesn't drop footballs. It would be a solid pick at that spot. I think, you know, and Joseph Herbst's going to freak the fuck out, you know, Christian Watson. I think that's another big potential name. It would be a little bit of a reach at
To me,
39.
that's a high ceiling guy though. Like I
Yeah.
would rather have a Pickens or someone like that. That seems like a little bit more of a plug in than like I like Watson a lot as a prospect, but you can't take him that high up because we have way too many holes to be taking a project with one of our first two picks. You know, we need like a Jalen Johnson, Cole Kmet type year where it's like we have two producers right away. I
Yeah.
know I'm gonna get hate for Cole Kmet, but the guy's got a fucking monster hog.
Oh,
Walk
dude.
fan, so don't really care what you think about him.
Oh, just absolute fucking like, dude, he has a hard time putting his pants on in the morning.
Oh
Like,
my god,
guaranteed.
dude!
Just
Every single
fucking
day, it's just like a struggle.
fucking roll of baloney. But you know, like I brought up my mock on Twitter earlier this week, and like if our guy isn't there wide receiver at 39, like I don't want to overdraft. I would prefer we either draft best player available, like a Brisker or a Sign. Like, because like listen, I know everyone wants offensive
Safeties
player.
always fall like premier top tier, like Pro Bowl players are always going to fall to that 39 range.
Well, dude,
Always.
and I know nobody wants to hear drafting a defensive player, but like if teams go wide receiver nuts in the first round, and one of those players are just sitting there at 39, you need someone opposite of Eddie Jackson. You need a top tier guy in the secondary besides Eddie Jackson, Jalen Johnson. Like I know everyone wants to just avoid defense. Like this is one thing Bears fans do is when we have a great defense, we want to address the offense. Then when we have pretty good offense and we just don't want to address the defense. Like I know this is a cycle we go through every couple years, but like we have a defensive minded head coach. Like if there's a great defensive guy just sitting there, we're going to go fucking get him. You know what I mean? But yeah, I guess the third guy I would bring up, and you already brought him up, Lucas, and it would probably be later in the draft, and we would end up either trading back or moving our picks around, would be David Bell. I really like what David Bell does. You know, we were talking about him last week. Like we said, dude, best player on the field. You know, those are the type of
His
guys I
testing was
want on the
abysmal,
roster.
but like to me, it's just like you don't consistently produce like that, and then it would be one thing if his whole game was built on him like making jump ball catches and contested catches in college and shit. Like very good at finding the soft spot in zones. Teams did not like to press cover him because he was always just abusing people at the line. Like to me, it's like people are going to have their knocks about him and just say he cannot compete at the next level because he's not an explosive enough athlete. I just think he's going to explode as an athlete, to be honest. Like to me, it's like his game is 100% built off footwork. So why would we grade his 40 time or his vertical jump? Like his ability to track the ball in air is a plus. Like I just think it's kind of fucking crazy to me that people aren't rating him as high as he should be. He's going to be one of those guys that just like everyone's like, who the fuck? Like, how is he producing? I don't know. He's just slippery, bro. Like he just gets open. People want to say he doesn't get open. I don't really care. To me, it's like from what I've seen in college, the dude is that's to me, it's like, how are you going to say that he doesn't get separation? Like how can you say that if you just watch one of his basic highlight films, he is wide the fuck open all the time. Like it makes no sense to me, but people are going to have their predetermined thoughts about what, about people that run slow or whatever. So I don't really give a fuck. But right now, you're not looking at one of those top tier athletes anyway. And if you are, it's a developmental piece that you're going to have to take with one of your high round picks. And that to me doesn't seem like the best approach to have, a guy that might emerge in 3 years from now when you got to fucking pay him.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go nuts and draft a Mr. Upside. That was always kind of like the slang term back in the early to mid 2000s of the guy that ran the 640 but ended up doing nothing. Like I don't want to go get Darius Hayward Bay. Like I'm good on that. I don't need a 6'3" guy who runs a 4.24. Like, yeah, that sounds incredible on paper. Everyone wants the next Randy Moss, but like even a guy like Jamar Chase, who you could almost compare to like a young Randy Moss, he fucking showed it in college. Like there was no question he was going to be this good. Like anyone who watched him at LSU like knew. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't a
that's
fucking
what I'm
secret.
trying to say about him too. Like people were like I had someone say to me on Twitter, like, no one knew how good Jamar Chase was. And I was like, no, everyone fucking knew how good Jamar Chase was. Everyone pretty much said, did you see what Justin Jefferson did? This kid's fucking better than him. That's
Well,
like
yeah.
all I heard.
Well, dude, and it's like it's funny because they said the same thing about his quarterback. That's like everyone like this past postseason. They're like, holy shit, who's this Joe Burrow guy? Like we never knew Joe Burrow was this good. We never knew Joe Burrow like had this much drip at all times. And it's like, bro, this has always been Joe Burrow. Like, did you not watch like his season at LSU was like one of the greatest seasons by a quarterback I've ever seen in college football history. Like he literally destroyed everyone in the Heisman race, won a national title, and just killed everyone on the way to doing it. Like, and that's the thing. Like when we praise guys like Traylon Burks or fucking David Bell, who just are the best player on the field on their respective teams, like at all times, like that's why, because you show it. You know what I mean? Like athleticism will only get you so far. Athleticism will make you look really good in college, but dude, they're going to cushion the hell out of you. They're going to make sure you can't beat a safety or go deep, and they're going to dare you to beat them underneath if you're an athletic beast. And it turns out if you can't catch a football or take a hit over the middle, you're pretty damn worthless.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Drake London's gonna be a bust. I feel bad for him. I just think he's gonna be a bust.
I don't trust USC wide receivers like ever.
No, I think Mike Williams is probably the best I've seen in like the last 20 years, right?
Yeah. Well, which Mike Williams are we talking about?
The one that's on the chart, like the good Mike Williams, not
Oh,
the shitty one. There was two that came out in like 4-year spans, right?
well, the Mike Williams that got drafted in Detroit back in the day was
No, I'm talking about Mike Williams in current. I think he was like the 6th overall pick or 10th overall pick, something like that. The current
no.
Charger, who's actually a really good fucking player. That's what I'm saying, dude. That well dries up. I loved the idea of what's it called, Mike Williams. I love the idea of Godwin. I love the idea of a lot of these guys, and they just, if you're a good player, a team is not going to let you walk. They're going to either get value for you in a draft or in a trade, or they're going to fucking pay you. Like, that's why I'm like, I look far ahead, and I'm sure a lot of GMs are looking at Brandon Cooks the same way. Guy that's produced in every single offense with the worst quarterbacks. Like, we're talking about a guy that is produced everywhere. Never have I heard a peep out of the guy in terms of complaining or anything like that. And like, he's like someone that's probably going to get let up, and it doesn't make any sense. You don't know why, but it's like, okay, well, the Texans are a shitbox organization anyways. So that's someone I could see targeting down the line. But it's like anytime there's someone of substance, you're seeing them go back to their team, or they're going to Super Bowl contenders for a decent price, or they're going to Jacksonville for a fuck you price. There's really nothing in the middle there.
Yeah, and you know what? As we've kind of talked about over the course of this entire podcast, man, if Justin Fields proves that he's the guy this season, we can go get one of those guys. We genuinely can. We can be aggressive enough at that point once we know the quarterback position is set to go get those guys. There's just too much we don't know in the area. You know what I mean? Like giant Justin Fields guy. Like I said, I think he is that guy, but like we need to actually like fucking see it
By
throughout
every
a
single
full season,
standard,
you know what I mean?
Justin Fields had a horrible, horrible rookie season, and there's no way to spin it any other way. Like, yes, there are factors that Bears fans know that kind of helped get him there, but overall, no one could really say he had a good rookie season. You could say he made some really high level throws and put together some pretty high level performances, but they were very, very streaky. I'm talking about high level for a quarter or something like that, or high like the ending of that Pittsburgh Steelers game. Like that showed me a lot in terms of
Yeah.
his ability. But it's like we have not seen anything consistent enough to say Justin Fields is that dude. Like,
Well,
we really haven't.
well, that's what I mean. Like, and it's been a small sample size for the most part. That's why polls came in, and it's still going to roll with him as a quarterback for right now. But I think you see his talent, and I think you see kind of he has a little bit of that it factor, and he can make plays with his feet.
For
Like
sure, for
he
sure.
definitely has a guy. He definitely has like a feel to him when you watch him play, especially in a late game. That like he's going to make something happen. But
I
you
think
know,
Bears fans do have a different perspective on him than other teams, but I'm talking
well,
about offense-wise strictly. Like, you can't say it.
I think Matt Nagy was that bad. I truly do.
He is that bad. He
I
is that bad. We know this.
like I think that's a big thing that's kind of working in his favor as well, because like if you look at the rest of the league, man, I don't think anyone hit up Matt Nagy outside of the Chiefs and was like, "Hey, come be on our coaching staff." You know what I mean? I feel like everyone kind of saw like,
The Jacksonville
dude,
Jaguars did with Doug
dude,
Peterson.
look, Mitch doesn't have the market that he had if people didn't think Matt Nagy was full of shit.
100%.
You know
Mitch
what I
got a
mean?
job strictly based off the idea that Matt Nagy is fucking awful.
Exactly. But
That's powerful. You got to be really bad to do that.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and I think that's something that bodes really fucking well for Justin Fields is like, I truly believe, and I try telling people this too, is like with some of the guys that we already have on our roster, like I think Nagy was that fucking bad. Like, dude, the proof is in the fucking pudding. I think we're gonna see it this year. I think we're gonna see guys who are on this roster, like a guy like Cole Kmet is gonna take off. I really believe that if used correctly. And you know, Luke Getsy has used tight ends in the past. Dude, look at how much he got out of fucking Rob Tonyan, man.
Like, come on. Yeah, Tunyon is not that. Like he's fine. He's a good player. And I think Aaron Rodgers is very good at utilizing his tight ends. But yes, like Cole Kmet in terms of talent is 100 times fucking better. If Robert Tunyon could have 10 fucking touchdowns in a season, there's no reason why Kmet can't have 13 to 16.
Yeah,
It's just that simple.
100%, dude. I went
They're
on
different
board.
level athletes. Like, it's
I
just
went
not
on.
the same. It's like Jamar Chase versus fucking Chris Olave. It's just like Garfield versus Thanos. Like, there's no. That was such a
You're
random
such a fucking
comparison.
idiot, dude. I'm clipping that. I'm gonna.
I
clip
can't
that
even believe that's
100%.
what came out of my mouth, but I was just thinking of something dinky, and I'm like, Garfield is a little bitch if you really think of it.
Dude. It adds to it because of some of the like just wild Garfield memes that are out there. So that was like my head just went straight in the fucking gutter. But yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like we covered quite a bit. I feel like we ripped on Bears Twitter enough. Kind of went over the free agent moves. Is there anything else you got, Lucas? I feel like we covered a lot. I really liked how this episode turned out.
That's about it. I mean, if you think about, just to give you a comp pick formula update, I guess, like, there's differing opinions out there, but supposedly the AAV for like the threshold of players is $2 million. It looks like the Bears, like, it looks like Pat O'Donnell got 2 years, $4 million. It could be, a misreporting, but that's what it looks like to me. Same thing with Artie Burns, got like $2.1 million, which, thank you, Uncle Sean, for coming back and fucking paying that bum $2 million. Like, so it does look like they're pretty even in terms of comp pick. Like I said, other people will say other things. From what I'm being told, the AAV has to be $2 million a year. So someone like Damian Williams is going to miss, or even Alex Bars, like those guys are in that 1.75 range. But then Equinemius St. Brown doesn't count against you. Some of those types of signings. So we'll see what the actual AAV turns into, but it does look like there's a good shot that the Bears are able to get like a third or fourth round comp pick next year, which would be really fucking dope. Surprised, like, to be honest, Akeem Hicks hasn't been signed yet. Someone like that, even Eddie Goldman, like, after being cut, you'd think because he doesn't count against the comp pick, like, someone would have picked him up by now. Even a Ravens, like, on a backup nose tackle deal to just have him in the rotation for like $2 million. Like, it's just kind of surprising,
Yeah, I think guys like that, the dominoes are going to fall for them after the draft. I think teams are going to want to see how much interior defensive linemen fall in this draft, because like it feels like the entire talk about this draft so far is wide receivers. Like everyone is just in a wide receiver frenzy, and there's a chance that some damn good interior defensive linemen fall in this draft. So I really think we're gonna closer to like training camp, or possibly mini camp, team workouts and stuff like that. You're going to see a guy like Keem Hicks get picked up. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Akeem ended up in San Diego, kind of in that rotation, going back to Brandon Staley, where he got some of the
That makes a lot of sense.
best
And the
production
Browns
of
is
his
in
career.
interest too.
Yeah. Eddie Goldman, 3-4 defensive lineman, man, there's always going to be a market out there for a guy like that that can just eat blocks, even if he's doing it on a rotational basis. Their personal prices could be too high right now as well. They could be kind of eating humble pie right now. Yeah, and I don't mean that derogatory term. It's just obviously when you have played at a high level at a certain point in your career, you obviously think you're probably worth a little bit more than what you actually are, what teams are willing
Yeah.
to pay you.
Well, I'm sure right
Um,
now too, any team would be willing to sign someone like Hicks for an incentive-based deal, like not a high base, but high incentives, because if he stays healthy, he's going to like he played at a dominant level. He just has not been able to stay healthy. So it's tough to like he's probably looking for more guaranteed money, knowing this is probably his last good contract. Um,
yeah. Oh,
that would be my
100%.
guess.
Well, and I could see him also. He could be one of those like domino that falls during like training camp. You know what I mean? Like a guy gets injured on a competing team, and you're like, oh fuck, we have Akeem Hicks just chilling in free agency, or we can plug him immediately in. Because
Yeah.
I feel like a guy like Akeem, maybe not Eddie because he's a little bit younger, but I feel like a guy like Akeem is gonna kind of test his market and see if he can get to like one of the more talented teams in the league to either be a rotational pass rusher or be on a team that has a chance to really win a Super Bowl, because I genuinely think he wants to win a Super Bowl.
Well, and it's like that's kind of why I wasn't that upset about the Mac trade, because it's like Mac got traded to which is kind of ironic when you think about it. Mac got traded to the Bears because first they were going to pay him, but second it looked like they were building a contender and he wanted to be on a contender.
Mhm.
And unfortunately it did not work out that way, but it's like it's good to see Khalil Mack actually fucking making his money and having a chance at a Super Bowl. Like it's nice to see that as a fan, a former fan. It's good to see some of those older vets get that opportunity because you want to see them win. They weren't able to get that job done here. It's like I'll be a fan of specific players and follow them through their career if they're all time Bears. And I think Khalil Mack does reach that territory. But I think we're about good here, right, Duke? You want to get us wrapped up?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I covered everything. I kind of feel the same way about Khalil Mack. That's kind of how I would have felt about Julius Peppers had he not gone to the Packers. Really anyone from that 2018 team, man, they're always gonna have a special place in my heart, except Adrian Amos right now for the most part. But anyway, yeah, I think that about wraps it up. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, definitely subscribe, leave us a rating on wherever you're listening. A rating on Spotify, a rating on Apple. That goes such a long way. Follow us on Twitter at Barely There Pod. Subscribe to us on YouTube, man. We're really trying to build the YouTube presence over there. If you guys want to like stare at our glowing faces and instead of listening to the audio version of this after the recording, that is the way to do it. Just look up Barely There on YouTube. But yeah, besides that, me and Lucas, dude, I'm having a blast doing this. Like, we're only 3 weeks in, and I feel like we're right back to where we were when we were recording before, man. I get excited for Wednesdays, excited to engage with everyone. And hey, man, the more engagement we get, the more potential we have for like some events down the road. Do you want to tailgate and punch Lucas in the face? Like, we can totally be down with that at Soldier Field at some point. So yeah, all the
I
support
don't
means a lot.
I don't know where that came from or why that's an option, but it's not I'm not that's not good. I'll sue, okay? I'll call my dad. No,
Lucas will call his dad.
my dad owns a barber salon and barely speaks English, so you won't have any types of those issues with me. But overall, yeah, we have no like legal connections, unfortunately. But if you got some, send them over to me. I'll take them for future use. But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun, and we appreciate you guys for sure. And bear down.
Yeah, bear down.